Look, I know there's a lot of hand-wringing about Arsenal's current situation, but please try to remember it could always be worse. You could be Tottenham Hotspur. This is the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast. My name's Elliot, speaking Black Man, Twitter, Yankee Gunner. Yeah, we put together a battling and I think impressive performance at Stamford Bridge that generated just the single point, although it could have been more. And it's going to be an interesting one to pull apart and have a look at and think about where it leaves us in the season. What we didn't just do is hand Ipswich their first Premier League win on our home ground. We didn't do that. So, we don't have Timo Werner in our team. Could be worse. So there are some signs of life at Arsenal. The question on everybody's mind, I think, is whether those signs of life are too late or not for the Premier League season. We will certainly cover that component of it. I think, and I say often, you should check out the instant reaction for the emotional response and the energetic response post-match. I think it is fair to say it is the most quote, on fire I have seen Clive in a long time. And I would strongly recommend it just for that. Tomorrow, you'll be getting a rewatch of the Chelsea game. And I think there's some stuff in there that's worth rewatching. I think there's some interesting cameos on one side like Marino, some interesting cameos on another side like Gabriel Jesus. And we will certainly be covering both of those. We got a lot of interesting stuff coming up for you over there as well, because I'll be over on the other side of the pond following the international break. And so we'll be able to do some cool stuff over there during that time, and maybe even a quick meetup as well. So stay with us for everything. The season is going to be really good. I promise you that. And if it isn't, please come back to me and blame me for promising you that. But I still feel confident in it. Okay. We're going to talk about all that and more with Paul. You can find him on Twitter at PosmanPants. Pause. And Clive, you can find him on Twitter at ClivePFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
I want to start with, and by the way, as we sat down to record just about an hour before the David Coote stuff broke, a video of him sort of saying what he thinks of Jurgen Klopp and some things that aren't particularly flattering. I have some thoughts on that topic that may come up later in this pod, but we have a lot of Arsenal specific stuff to go to. Fair to say that it was phenomenally stupid of him to record that. I still think the PGMOL has bigger issues just with the talent pool. I mean, look at it this way. This is a guy whose job is just to display great judgment. That's his whole job, displaying that kind of judgment to let himself get filmed. The talent pool just needs to be bigger. They can't be going to the Emirates to ref games and get paid for it. There's bigger issues afoot with the referees. We'll get to it another time. Let's stay with Arsenal for now. Clive, the thing with Arsenal that I want to start with is just where you're at writ large. International breaks are a great time for summing up. And I'm curious how you would sort of sum up where we are at not quite the quarter pole, almost the third pole of the season, and how you're feeling about our league campaign so far and whether it's still realistically a title charge.
There's a lot in there, Elliot, as per normal. I think, yeah, I mean, people are not stupid. We've not had the best start, but we've also had a very difficult start. Fixture list and circumstantial. It's been really, really quite difficult. When we were sitting down at the start of the season, I don't think we'd be thinking about 3 red cards in those first few games, and for the reasons that we had them for. Considering last year we had very, very few, and I think we might have even topped the fair play table. It just wasn't on our radar to get involved in that type of refereeing narrative, shall we say, to promote new rules. And then we have a situation where we're getting viewed slightly differently, and I'm sort of getting used to that. I get myself in a bit of a washing machine about it all, and I get upset, and I come out of it and say, actually, why is that? Let's be honest, Arsenal are big business, right? So if you talk about them, then you're going to get engagement and traction. And us Arsenal fans, we're pretty good at that old engagement and traction thing, right? So so it's going to continue. So if we put one step in the road, then we're going to get spoken about. With other people can put 2-3 steps in the road, no one cares, right? So we have to adjust to that. And I may have said this before, but no one cares about us in that regard the same way we do. They don't care about the issues that we've had. They just want to find a reason to say, why aren't you winning? And when we do win, we have to win a certain way. When we draw, we have to draw in a certain way. When we lose, we go to 10 men, we need to still win with 10 men. And until we win, we're just not going to get any trust, any quarter, anything. And I've just grown with that now, Elliot. I've grown with that. From an Arsenal point of view, it's been tough. It's been really tough. Yet,
Yeah.
There's some green shoots there, mate, isn't there? There's some green shoots, and I'd rather focus on the green shoots and the next evolution for our team and how we're going to string a series of results together, which we need to do.
Yeah. I think I look at it this way, Paul, in that the odds are very clearly no longer in favor of us winning the Premier League title. Like, the odds are not good. If you anybody listening to this pod, no matter how optimistic you are, if someone said to you, you have to bet your life's worth, your life savings on someone winning the title, I don't think you'd bet it on Arsenal. That's not the same as saying we can't do it or we're not in it. I think if we were 9 points adrift of Manchester City, just knowing what they're capable of and what they've done, I think most of us would be writing it off. I think we are still casting a curious eye at Liverpool to see what they really are about. I mean, they got off to a pretty hot start last season, not like this, but they had their challenges, and their season does hinge on the contribution of a couple of players that are later in their career. So I think things can change. We know that their fixtures have been a bit easier and ours have been a bit harder. I believe that we are, people are going to roll their eyes out of their head, but I'll defend this in a moment. I believe we are probably as good now as we were last season, but for the order of fixtures and the absences of key players. But we're now going to have to prove that. I think if we win the next 9 games, that's a lot to do. if we take 21 from the next 27 points, I think we're on the same point total as we were last season at that time. So, Paul, in terms of this still being a title challenge, I don't want to say it's right there for us, but I don't feel that it's out of reach. And I personally could just keep talking, as the listener knows, but seeing as how I have finally turned it over to you, why don't you unmute and give us your thoughts?
Yeah. Look, I'll be honest, Elliot, if I had to bet everything I had on the outcome of this, I'd bet on Arsenal because I'm a true supporter.
So, yes. Are you going to
yep.
move in with me at the end of the season then?
Because I don't have a house, and any money, and my wife has turned her back. Well, she's a true supporter too, so she's going to be fine with it.
So she'll live with us too. The more the merrier.
Yeah. In a shoebox in the middle of the road.
No, see, I'll be wealthy because I bet on the Premier League winner, so I'll have plenty to go around.
Yeah. So, look, I don't think we're as good as we were last year, but last season. But it's not bothering me because I think, well, depends on your recency bias. And if you take the last 30 minutes of that Chelsea game, then yeah, you're right. I think we're back, baby. But we're only just about back. And that was a game of 2 halves, one of which started at around 60 or maybe 70 minutes. And I saw my Arsenal back. So I will grant you that. We're just about back. Because of that, because I went and rewatched it, and when you rewatch things, you do things, something happens mentally. You focus on the bit that you know is coming. And the bit that was about to happen was that last 20, 25 minutes. And you could see it all there. So yeah, I'm like, all right, guys, bring it. We've spotted you a 9-point start. Between them and us is City. And I think to use the Tour de France analogy, you got the guy herring away over the hill. You got a small group chasing him, and then a slightly larger group chasing that group. And I think we are that slightly larger group. We're going to track down City. City are going to track down Liverpool enough. It's just over a point a month that they need to drop. But they tend to come in threes. They need to drop 3 points nice and early while we're picking them up. And suddenly they'll start to sweat a bit because they got another 7 months to go. And if you drop 3 points in the next month or so, suddenly things start to tighten up. So yeah, look, it's far from over. It's all about us. Us controlling what we can do, us going on a run. And basically it comes down to that. It's pretty binary. If we get our shit together, if we get on fire, get the momentum going, keep our players fit, this is absolutely on. If we have more fitness concerns, significant fitness concerns, challenges, continuing bad luck, we're kind of screwed. But we probably were going to be anyway. If it wasn't Liverpool, it would have been City. We need luck, we need momentum, but I saw enough of what happens when we get Martin Odegaard back in the team to think, oh, okay, here we go.
Yeah, I think what makes seasons so hard to understand is the order of fixtures. I'll tell you something. Manchester City, after 11 games last season, 11 games, so same point as this, 27 points. Liverpool this season, 28 points. 6 match weeks later, Manchester City last season were in 5th, having picked up 7 of the next 18 points. Because they went on a cold run. Now, what happened after that? They then turned into Manchester City again and won every single game. The order of fixtures and the order of runs makes narratives in seasons feel very clear and evident. When you zoom out and you realize it's not clear and evident at all. I don't actually think we were very good for the first half of last season. Somehow we found ourselves top of the table at Christmas. And then we lost a few games and the title was gone and it was Liverpool's. So there's an ebb and flow. Now I realize there's a sensation that, well, we're just not very good this season. What's there to think that we're going to go on a run? I know we brought this up before, but I think it bears repeating. We have played away to Spurs, Villa, City, Newcastle, Chelsea, and home to Liverpool. 6 of our first 11 games. We've played one of those games with 10 men, and all of those games without Odegaard or Declan Rice. And we've won. We've won 8 points from those games, right? I think it's actually more than last season, something along those lines. So from the away games, the irony also is, by the way, we've had our hardest Champions League fixtures front loaded. We played the Italian champions, we played the French champions, right? We played Inter away. Atalanta away. We've played PSG. So it has been a very difficult start, and that start has coincided with a particularly poor run of injury luck, of fitness luck. So people, there's this weird thing, Clive, where people have said enough with the excuses. And we'll talk about the no excuses thing in a moment. But before we just get into the Chelsea game properly, what do you think of the idea of this being excuses versus this being an explanation? Because here is the critical thing I would ask anyone who calls it excuses. Other than the Newcastle game, when I think we were genuinely crap, we got outcoached, as you have rightly pointed out. What game did we not play well in that you expected us to play well in? So is it excuse making? Is it being a fan and looking for excuses that you wouldn't give to another team? Or is it an explanation for what has been a really tricky start to the season?
Yeah, the 2 games that concern me really was Bournemouth was the one that concerned me the most, funny enough. I don't think we were at our right attitude. I don't think anywhere close to our level. We sleepwalked into a moment which we were harshly punished for, but we got punished. This was a football moment rather than a technicality, which you saw against Brighton and against City, which I think ruined those games. And so Bournemouth for me was on us the most. I don't think we picked the right team. I don't think we had the right system. But I don't know that because we only had half hour with 11 men. And so that's the game that worries me. Newcastle, we weren't great on the day when I really wanted us to be great because I'm not a fan of them and they're not fans of us. And we gave them oxygen, right? So they won against Chelsea in the League Cup, then they played us, and then they won again at the weekend. And they're springing around again, and they found their form, and they're in a bit of trouble. So we give them oxygen, right? We give them life. But actually, in that game, we should have got an equaliser at the end. So we were better Newcastle than we were against Bournemouth, but it's not. We're talking fractions here, right, Elliot? So
yeah. Well, in one of those games, we kept 11 men on the pitch and had Bukayo Saka, and one of them we didn't. So
yeah, exactly. So we were a bit better. So yeah, the ball point worried me. I suppose. What can I say? Really, in my mind, I know that things are not right, and we've just tried to make do with certain things not being in place. There are things that happened this year, and I tend to do my analysis on the horizon. I tend to look forward on how we can evolve and how we can get better, and how maybe I can course a chart for people to learn about the game, develop their thinking. However, I didn't think we'd be playing 4-4-2 for the first chunk of this season. Did you, Elliot? Did you think we'd be doing that?
No.
Because I certainly didn't. We know about our off the ball shape, but our on the ball shape had to completely change, or we had to reconfigure something else. I didn't suspect all the fullback changes and the centre-back changes due to suspension and small injuries, and then losing multiple fullbacks. I didn't suspect that. I didn't suspect that our signing on the left-hand side, both of them, Calafiori and Marino, would suffer injuries multiple times. So from an upgrade perspective, what have we actually done? We haven't really seen them yet on the pitch at the same time. And there's been a few issues regarding some of our backup forwards for me, where their levels are. So there's a few things that I just didn't see coming, and not even the slightest way. We can predict people dropping off in performance, etc. But I didn't see this level of churn and issues. I didn't see it, and we've come out of it just about okay. I'm talking the lower end of 50-50. Do you know what I mean? We're just about okay. So the optimistic side of me just thinks things have to get better. And there are good reasons for it. We look at things, particularly the difficulty of the fixture list. There are reasons for it. But we are in that, not say last chance saloon, but every one of us is expecting a run. Let's get into our heads at the moment, right? Everyone's thinking, right, that first game against Nottingham Forest is absolutely crucial. We have to win it. We have to win it. Because if we don't, I really feel there's going to be a problem. I think the next one after that might be West Ham away.
Well, we have the Sporting game.
We have the Sporting game in the middle, but the next one is West Ham away. Now, if we beat Forest, we go West Ham away, and we beat West Ham away, City and Liverpool are playing each other on West Ham away day. So we can sit there and say, okay, someone's losing points here. But we can't sit there and say anything if we don't do our job, So that first game is really, really important, and that's where my eyes are, mate, at the moment.
Yeah, the thing for me fundamentally is I just don't see an Arsenal that's been that bad, and everybody wants me to say, or I shouldn't say everybody. I think there's a desire to be frustrated with Arsenal right now because we're not in the position in the table where we should be. And I understand the desire to be frustrated. What I struggle with is to understand where we should have done better. The Newcastle game's a great example. The Shakhtar game's probably a good example as well, but we actually won that game. But when I look at what we did at the Etihad, I can only be proud of it. When I look at what we asked to try to do at Bournemouth, a Bournemouth that beat 11-man City, that we went without Saka and Odegaard and then went down to 10 men. I struggle to say we should have done better there. When I look at what we did at Chelsea, by the way, City drew Chelsea twice last season. Liverpool drew at Chelsea last season. We drew at Chelsea last season. And the expectation is we're going to take a just half-fit Arsenal to Chelsea and we should stomp them. I thought we played great for most of the game. I thought there were things that weren't great. I thought there were things that were great. And we could have won it. We got a draw. I don't think that I look at that and say, well, we're not good anymore. And so as I look through this season, as I look at beating PSG and I think outplaying Inter, I try to tease out of the season, where's the game other than Newcastle where I see some decline in who we are or some reduction in our quality? And I can hold two contradictory thoughts in my head. I do believe we got the summer wrong. And the more the season goes on, I feel that strongly. I said it on a podcast at the start of September, right after the window closed. And I will say it now. I think we got aspects of the summer wrong. Not the whole summer, but aspects of it. I do think that if Calafiori and Marino had been fit and we had been using them right from the start and we didn't look like we were so choppy and changey, those moves might feel much better right now. But I think obviously in attack, we all feel that we're maybe a little bit light. Paul, here's a final tricky thing to ask you. And I want to be cautious in how I frame this. Clive, come back on what I've said before.
Only because we said we've got the summer wrong. I think there needs to be context around this. We haven't had the most creative player in Europe in our teams since August the 31st. And so whatever you think about the summer, it will be exacerbated by the lack of that player, from an offensive point of view. I think all of us, well, many of us, would have liked to have seen a bit more in attack. Is that a fair comment? But I think how that feels, how acute that feels, has been added to by the fact that we've missed Odegaard. That's my feeling, really.
And just for the purpose of fairness, on September 2nd or 3rd, or whenever we recorded that pod, I said, I think Odegaard's a single point of failure, and I think we've made a mistake not addressing that position. So We got bitten in the worst way possible. I don't deny that. But I think it was an obvious risk point. And I will say this. I look at a club that went for Rice, Havertz, and Timber last summer. 105 million Rice, 65 million Havertz. I don't even remember what we paid for Timber. And I look at what we did this summer, and I don't know that we were as aggressive in trying to consolidate our position and push it on this summer, or maybe we tried to be and couldn't get it done. I mean, that happens. But
Can
that's
I say a couple of things on that?
I'd love you to, please.
We've heard a language this summer and from Mikel at the early in the season that implies there are limits on our financial capacity at this point.
Yeah, there was the whole sell to buy thing this summer. Like, that's not something you hear from a club that's just got the green light to go fire away, you know?
And you see in the reporting on Edu and why he's leaving, there's reporting on, one part of it was his frustration that he had his moves lined up and that the board were effectively sitting on it. Calafiori was only something they pulled the trigger on when somebody else was chasing it. And so there's clearly financial restraints that there weren't from previous years, from previous summers. And Mikel talked about something. He was asked a question about tiredness and fatigue and the number of games. And he replied in it something to the effect that, the squad is not as big as he wanted, that there are limitations now in terms of financial constraints generally with the what's the financial
PSR.
PSR. So there are constraints we haven't had before. So we basically had a couple of moves this summer, and he made his choice, right? And I get it. It would be great to have an Odegaard backup, but I don't know how you have an Odegaard backup. The number of players we could have had a player who fitted in for a game or two or three with a similar profile. Having a similar profile does not give you Martin Odegaard. He's unique. He's exceptional. We took the gamble with I've used my roulette example. You can bet on red, you can bet on black, but you can't bet on red and black unless you're not very good at gambling, or you're a billionaire, right?
Mm-hmm.
We had choices to make. He made his choices. He didn't want a weak sauce Odegaard backup. He wanted Mikel Merino. He has a specific role in mind for the guy. Mikel Arteta is pretty good at football. I think we'll hopefully see why Mikel Merino is the player he wanted and why he's an asset across the season. He wanted players who are probably going to play most games, Calafiori, Mikel Merino, and that's where he spent his money. He didn't want to spend it on a backup when he had, and how do you, the number of players who are a legitimate backup for Martin Odegaard are extraordinarily expensive. And you might get the profile, you won't get the level, you won't get the ability to press across 90 minutes, or the leadership, all of the things that you suddenly saw missing. And that's the problem when you lose Martin Odegaard. You don't miss just a creative player. So, look, it'd be great if we had a creative player who could step in and we could play the same way.
Yeah.
But a less good creative player?
Fine.
Well, you say that. Or you have really strong players and you just change a bit differently. And it worked for a while. So he made his choice, right? I'd love to have a great Martin Odegaard backup. I would. But then I have to give up Calafiori or Merino. And that's assuming Odegaard's going to be injured during the season. And he made his bet.
Yeah. And look, I'm not suggesting that Calafiori or Merino were necessarily bad signings. That's not my point. My point is, see, I don't like the idea of the backup argument. I've always said don't buy backups, right? Like, look at the number of defenders Mikel Arteta has bought. For F's sake, we bought David Raya, or brought in David Raya, when we had just re-signed a contract with Aaron Ramsdale. Mikel Arteta and Edu have shown they're willing to stockpile in certain areas. I don't think we've stockpiled enough in the attacking third, and I think it's impossible to say we have.
But he didn't stockpile goalkeepers, right? He brought in an upgrade, as it turned out.
I get it, but we literally we had just given Ramsdale another contract. I don't want to relitigate that. Let me say it this way. We have not made the commitment to reinforcing the final third with the same vim and vigor we have done that in other areas.
Okay, but he made his choices, right?
Yes, yeah. To your point, you're absolutely right. And by the way, Paul, I could even strengthen your point.
Assume that he could do all of it. You're right. We're missing that player, and we're missing an attacker. I agree.
Yeah. And by the way, I can strengthen your point, which is Mikel Arteta may feel that a Calafiori, for example, strengthens our attack because of how he sees what fullbacks do and the way we want to attack. That a Mikel Merino strengthens our attack in ways like we saw. He helps create the biggest chance of the game for us at the death against Chelsea. I fully accept that Merino and Calafiori not being able to integrate quickly because they were acquired late and because they've been injured has made it harder for us to see the vision, right? Mm-hmm. I do think that there was one more piece to get. The piece we got was Sterling, and no one, Mikel Arteta and Edu included, are going to sit here and say that was the one that did it. And by the way, we are further hampered by the fact that the group behind the group, and I think this is one of the biggest talking points from this game, Trossard, Jesus, Sterling, that group simply is not going to give us enough as it looks right now. Martinelli scored an important goal in this game. Saka's brilliant. I think Kai Havertz is brilliant. It's not just that we needed one more player. It's that the players who could have filled the gap, guys like Jesus, look like a shadow of themselves. So we'll get to that. And here's a final point, Clive, that I think is the hardest point of all. I try not to let social media infect what we talk about on the podcast too much, but I also don't think social media is irrelevant. There are times when, because I get emails from people, I'm in WhatsApp groups, I'm on X and Threads and Discord and Instagram and stuff. There is some frustration out there and impatience with Mikel Arteta that, given the trajectory we've been on and looking like, I think, one of the best teams in Europe last season and producing a season that 9 times out of 10 could win a title, but for the finest of margins, the frustration and impatience is much bigger than I would have expected, given the start we've had. That I don't see a lot of people wanting to give any time for the excuses of injuries or red cards or difficult fixtures. So I want to ask you this question. I have no doubt Mikel Arteta is the right man for the job and one of the best managers in world football right now. But is there just a time limit on projects at clubs these days where fan bases get to know someone, they get that familiarity breeds contempt, right? Is there a number of years that a manager and a project can run where people will have any patience for setbacks, even if zoomed out, they're clearly the right person? Is there just a limit? Is there some reality to the idea that Mikel needs to do it this season or next season because eventually the warmth and the appreciation and the love just wears off over time organically?
The game is a lot more transient in these days than it used to be.
Yep.
I swear, if you look around on Man City channels right now, there are people that say time's up for Pep. And he is the best in the history of the game. Right? So the extremities of opinions, you have to decide where you want to live. You have to decide who you want to engage with football with. You have to decide who are your people.
There are Liverpool fans saying Klopp was holding Liverpool back.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
It's crazy.
And there are, it's up to you to find your people to enjoy your football experience with. And that's what I said a few weeks ago, and I stand by it. It doesn't mean I need to ignore everybody else who's got an extreme opinion to a different opinion to myself. It just means that goes into my sort of thought process, and basically, I will make my opinions with a little bit of sensitivity towards what other people are actually thinking. And but it doesn't mean I'm going to rubbish what they're thinking. But it comes to a point where I have to say to myself, look, I think I know what we're trying to achieve. I think I know how we got here. I think I know how this manager started his regime, which is completely unique to any other manager in our history. When you start and 3 months later you're in a pandemic, right? So and then the market changes, and so any sort of time frame of a project you want to look at is dictated by the first 2-3 years. The game has stalled for a while. Liverpool would have won more league titles if it wasn't for COVID. They would have sold people when they would have sold, and they would have regenerated. So it affects us in different ways, and so you have to decide that if that's what you want to do. people are saying the Arteta out people all over my timeline at the moment. And I just think, okay, that's your way of enjoying football. Your way of enjoying football is to critique the key moments, and that's fine by you. Well, the way I enjoy football is, yeah, I understand those key moments. They're pretty obvious to me, mate. We've got points that we haven't quite got, and I wish we could win every single week, but we just can't. And by the way, no team has ever won every single week, right? So I just need to temper that and not argue with people and just say, look, this is where we are. This is where we are right now. I'm prepared to be patient, but the problem is, Elliot, this is the problem. When you have an emotional experience that we've had with Mikel Arteta, when he has basically touched many people's hearts the way they look at the club, right? The excitement, the energy, going to match days now is completely different to what it was 4 or 5 years ago. He's done that. So you could say, I'm paraphrasing here, that he's made us fall in love, deep love. But with deep love, you hope you're going to get something at the end of the journey. Do you see what I mean? And that's not quite there at the moment. And it seems 9 points away, minimum. So now you think, you made me love you. You made me. I was all right. I was all right just being cool. But now you've made me fall in love. Oh my God. So now I'm going to make you pay for it. You're no longer new. You're no longer the new thing on the block. The Manchester United got a new manager. Liverpool got a new manager. Pep's probably in departure now, probably. And we've got Mikel Arteta just signed a contract. You need to win, mate. You need to win. And all of the thoughts around where he's done, what he's done, how he's rebuilt, how he's how let people go and built the project from the ground up. I bet that people don't care. They're not interested. They just want to win. And that is the world we live in, I'm afraid. You just want to win and don't care about the other aspects. They just want to win.
Yeah. Yeah. Paul, a final thought on that?
Yeah, look, losing does that to people. Not everybody. It pisses everybody off, but some people just can't get past you lost 2 in a row and you drew the one before that. And like, you're going to get a certain reaction from that. It doesn't matter what club, where you are. We've had, to be fair, too many losses, too many draws. It's not ideal. And regardless of the reasons, you're going to get a big pushback from that because that is pain and we've all felt it. The other aspect is you're watching the train pulling out of the station. You're watching it pull 9 points ahead. Finally, there's a season where we're looking at this and saying, yeah, this is actually winnable. Like, City are flawed. They may not get their act together. So people are panicking, saying, when are we going to get going? The train's leaving without us. So you can get all of that. But what I'd say with Mikel Arteta is, when he first came in, we're like, well, he'll be around 3 or 4 or 5 years. And if it goes well, he'll be like, we're about halfway along in the journey. And at the end of the day, this is going to be a fascinating, interesting journey with its ups and downs, a couple of months here, a couple of months there, where it highs, lows. But we're about halfway here. He wants to take it all the way. He wants to win the league. He wants to build a team that's, it's a foundation for going deep in the Champions League, getting to the final, winning the like, it's a fascinating journey we're on. We're about halfway there. I didn't think he'd be here after 5-6 years. I thought he'd be around for a while. Like, we're only at the halfway point. You can feel we're not there yet. And yet the club is serious about it. It seems like the owners are serious about it. And Arteta continues to have a plan and an evolution. And I hear what you're saying on the signings, but he clearly has an approach where he builds the areas of the pitch that he think build the identity of the team. And yes, you're still waiting for those final couple of pieces. And at some stage we get there. But he's going to build, I'd say build from the back. I don't think it is as simple as that. He's going to build the team and have it stocked in the places with sufficient players that allow him to play in a particular way, even if that means he's missing out on an attacker or some additional coverage. He's absolutely identifying. The Ramsdale Raya swap was something we didn't like.
I liked it.
Well, you do now. Did you like it before?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, you're ahead of many. I could see why he did it. I didn't like it because I loved Ramsdale. I thought he'd done a great job. I thought it was too early. I didn't think that was where he should spend the dollars at that time.
That's fair.
But he's done a number of things where it's like, okay, there's a real fucking plan here. There's something specific he's trying to do that's beyond, oh, I'd like a better player here. Oh, I'd like an attacker there. It's about building a way of playing football. And at times you just got to step back, or at least I do, and say, well, it wouldn't be what I'd do, but he's clearly trying to build a team, a way of playing in depth that he can maintain over time, over games, over a season, over multiple competitions, and you just got to let the guy build to some degree.
Yeah. I just add a little bit on that. Just one quick line.
Please do.
I think we know each other well, and we sort of know how each other think, and we have got a bit of patience while still highlighting the issues.
A bit.
But there is a moment coming up right now where we can really measure things. And I think it's Edu's replacement succession plan. Right? So the person or the type of person we get in will dictate how really focused we are on what Josh said, basically. And I'm going to read the lines, what he said around when Edu went. He just said, change and evolution is part of our club. We remain focused on our strategy and winning major trophies. Our succession plan will reflect this continued ambition. What I know about executives is they do not waste a single word. That message has been looked at a million times, and I've read it and I've heard it. So you get measured on your actions. And I think it's important we give Mikel the support to allow him to win major trophies, because that is the next phase of this project. We're in that winning phase. And what disturbs me slightly, to your point earlier, Elliot, where you said we got the summer wrong. My issue is what I don't know about the summer. I think leading to what Paul says, I don't know why no one spent any money in the top end of the table. I don't know. Man City have got loads. They sold loads. They're in profit. We made a profit. Liverpool bought one player who hasn't put a foot on the pitch yet. I don't know why. And until I know why, I can't be too critical. Not just us. We're not an outlier. I don't know why. And I need to get this in my head before I can start, critiquing and smashing people about. Do you see what I mean? I don't.
Yeah.
Go ahead, mate. Sorry.
It's tough because you don't want to throw your toys out of the pram. This idea that fans have of just buy the players I think we need until we have all the players we need to win everything. Like, of course we should do that. If it was that easy, everyone would do that. Hell, Chelsea have literally tried to do that. Even that doesn't always get the result. So they finally look a lot better having spent £1 billion and bought all the players. But so I accept what you're saying. I really am curious. I'm so curious, you guys, to live in another dimension to understand what would have happened, because Jurgen Klopp put 97 points on the board in 2018, 2019, 97, and did not win the league. Now, the next season he did win the league with 99. And the season after that, he had 69 points. Now, if he hadn't gotten that 99-point league season and won the league then, if he had gotten the 97, and I realize he also won the Champions League. Jurgen Klopp is beyond critique. But here's my point. If he had gotten that 97-point season that didn't win the league, and then had the 69-point season after that, what would the narrative have been around Liverpool? What would the mood have been? There is an expectation of linear progress that just doesn't always happen for a variety of reasons. I've laid this out, by the way, in a tweet. You know what happened the 69-point season? All their defenders got crocked. All of them. Virgil van Dijk started 5 games, and they got 69 points. So it is tough. And Mikel Arteta said this, and it sounds like excuse-making, but I'm sorry, I cannot get away from it. On where today's result leaves us, he said, quote, "There is nothing I can change today about that. What I am just praying is that after the international break, I have the team fully equipped physically. They are available and they are fit, because it has been an absolute nightmare for 8 weeks. Issue after issue. Not only the ones that are not able to play, but the ones that are able to play for only certain moments, only certain days, not able to train. So I'm just asking that because the team, the desire that they have and how much they want it, there's no question about that. So it's going to come. We just need that on our side to be able to be more consistent. And there will be people who will say that's excuse making. But I ask you this. If we do get fit, is there anyone that thinks we're not very good? Is there a game you can point to this season where we weren't very good? Maybe Newcastle. We've just gotten back the best creative midfielder in maybe world football. And what do you know? He created stuff. He created the goal that Martinelli scored, and he created what should have been the goal to win the game. So I think that there is reason for frustration. I think there's reason to believe that there are key cogs in this squad that are missing. And I think that there is a lot of latent building frustration with the Mikel project that I think is based on very short-term considerations that I think just need to be stowed temporarily. And I would just say this, right now, this Arsenal project is under the microscope, internally and externally. Paul?
The one thing I'd add to that, while I think we played pretty well in certain games, what we have not seen yet is an Arsenal where you say, oh, those guys could win the Premier League. And for all the reasons we've just talked about, we don't need to go over, but like, I get the nervousness. There's one other factor for the nervousness, and that's that they haven't seen a team where they say, or where the outside world says, oh, those guys could win the league. We haven't seen that yet. I think I might have seen a chunk of it in the last 20 minutes against Chelsea, but that's what we're waiting for. And until people see that, the abstract thing that the reason we would have been better had we had this player, we would have been better if we hadn't gone down to 10 men, all true, but it doesn't change your connection to a winning season until you see the goods, until you see it across a few games. And until that happens, I think you'll start to see the belief coming back. It can't be abstract. Belief is something in your gut when they see it. When they see it over a few games, that's when I think we'll see a reversion to a belief. And if we can start to chase them down, it all changes in terms of the sentiment around the club. You got to see the football, though. And we had, for very good reasons, for the nightmare, the cauchemar, I would say, the nightmare that Mikel is talking about. We haven't seen it yet. And until you see it, feel it, experience it, we're not going to see that shift in the sentiment within the club, within the fan base.
I think you've made a really important point that is a really good rejoinder to my argument that we actually haven't been bad in most games. And I think it's a really good one, Paul, which is for the people that are frustrated, for the people that don't have the belief, they have a right to say, no, you're right. We haven't been bad in most games. And in fact, we've had excuses, but I haven't seen us be great yet either. And I think that's fair. I think that is very fair. And I think that's a fair rejoinder to what I've said, which is, or counterpoint, which is simply, if you're willing to accept, no, you know what? There aren't many games we were bad. We either were down to 10 men, or whatever the case may be. We've won at Villa, we've won at Spurs. I do think it is also fair to say we haven't looked great yet. Really, yeah. I mean, and that is a very fair argument that, all right, if you want to convince me we've had hard fixtures and we've had absences and those explain away a lot of the dropped points and you can accept that, it's also fair to say, all right, you think we're going to go on a 9-game winning run now with these 9 games we have or whatever? What's the evidence that we're that team? And I think that is fair. And the only evidence that we're that team is that we come back from the international break and become that team. If we pound a very good Forest team at home and then go win at Sporting and we're fit and we start to look like the Arsenal that we all know we are, I honestly think belief can come back very, very quickly if people see that. So, Paul, that's a great point. Let's get into the game a bit. I think there's some stuff in the game that's probably worth talking about on this post-match podcast. And it starts with the lineup. Before we do that, let's just take a beat. This is a good time, I think, to just take a deep breath. There's a long season left to go, and a lot of this conversation could look very silly in hindsight, or it could look very prescient in hindsight, depending on what happens next. But what will happen next, if you run a business, is that you will need to find the best talent for that business. And the way to find the best talent for your business is with Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster, though. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. It's just nuts to me, right? The idea, we're in 2024. The internet is no longer, let me go to 40 websites and do things. The internet is now about, let me find the one site that simplifies the project I want to do and do it efficiently. And that's the whole point behind Indeed. But it's not just simplification, it's more effectiveness. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners to this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/ArsenalVision. Just go to Indeed.com/ArsenalVision right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/ArsenalVision. Terms and conditions apply. To hire you need Indeed. And last but not least, this podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Therapy is important, and BetterHelp is therapy. Now, it's not therapy in an office with a therapist, which I still think, by the way, is the best thing you can do if you have the chance to do it. I did it, and I loved it. But what if you're like my mom? You don't drive anymore. Does that mean you should never have access to therapy anymore? Right? What if you can't find someone that is in your area? What if you don't have the time to get in the car, go, drive back? You have childcare. You can't get childcare. What if you want to talk to someone to work through the issues that are blocking you from being the best version of yourself, but going to an office and matching with someone and finding someone that way is just not possible? Well, then BetterHelp is a way to get online, match with someone that fits for you, has a specialty you need, camera off if you don't feel comfortable with the camera on, by the way, because you want to ease into the experience, and to do it more affordably. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/vision today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/vision. Is that enough of that?
Indeed.
Okay, Clive. One of the things that I heard a lot of, and I may have even said it myself in our Discord, when the lineup came out for the Chelsea game, is no excuses. Then I stopped for a minute. And I thought about, what does that mean, no excuses? I mean, we have a good lineup. So the obvious thing is that we should go to Chelsea and absolutely smoke them at Stamford Bridge. A thing, by the way, we didn't do last season. City didn't do last season. Liverpool didn't do last season. I didn't like the no excuses narrative, even though I may have contributed to it, because it implies that we have that we, just by dint of having a closer to first 11 starting, we should just go to Chelsea and smoke them. But I do think that having that lineup was a chance to see sort of what Paul was hinting at before the break there about, are we still the very good Arsenal we think we might be? So what do you think of getting all those players back, getting that lineup out there, even if some of them were patched up with war wounds, and what expectations that set for you about the kind of performance you would see?
Yeah, so I was in a similar place. I thought, we've got to win this. And I put so much pressure on the result that I could barely think of anything else all weekend, right, until the game started. Very nervous pre-game. But coming out of the game, I feel like better. You know, the point is one thing, but seeing the performance is another. And I realised that regardless of what we think about must-win and points accumulation, performance is everything, and how we play. And there were certain aspects of how we play I maybe slipped my mind. Odegaard's influence is huge, and how he pulls us up and moves us around and keeps the energy going and forward direction. And he does so much more than just play football. In fact, some of his football was pretty 6.5 out of 10. There's a couple of through balls he missed. If he gets them, we win the game, right? Later on in the season when he's sharper, they just happen, right? So there's a frustration there. I very much agree with one of our patrons, actually. He said something about a month ago. He sort of said, Clive, I feel as though I just haven't seen this team. And I thought, I know what he means by that. The last game I went to see live was probably, it may have been Southampton. We're having these chunks of away games in a row. I'm a homer. I go to the home games. We're not at the stadium for 3-4 weeks. That's what it feels like. And then we have chunks of home games. I feel as though the match-going fan hasn't seen the team yet, apart from maybe PSG. Haven't seen the team, at all. And then you have a situation where some of the best away results were quite tight and close, good occasions, but I just feel it's a very strange season, very strange schedule, very strange way to engage. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm hoping the season's going to start now, something a bit more normal. I just did not see this, and so yeah, Elliot, that's where I am with it at the moment. I feel a little bit exhausted waiting, but I have no choice. And by lashing out while I'm waiting for the very same things that other people want, exactly the same. I don't rest. I don't sleep. I think about stuff all night. I read stuff. I have the same concerns and worries, but I'm not going to lash out while I have them. I'm just going to try to pass them and try to process them. And I did see some really positive things yesterday that I'm excited to rewatch, mate, and see where we go.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, right? Because in another season, like Liverpool are going through the transition we expected, and we picked up a point on City yesterday, and we're just 4 behind them, and they don't look good. And we're in a good position right now. We've gotten through the injuries, we've gotten through the tough fixtures. City don't look great. They're missing Rodri. They look maybe underpowered, and we're in a position to pounce. 19 points, 4 points off City. It's what Liverpool have done that have us reevaluating the season, and it is. Yeah, Clive? Mm-hmm.
I just want to say, sorry, I shouldn't have stopped you then, but I just want to say it's quite interesting game yesterday against Chelsea. We go into that game as projected title challengers. Chelsea go into that game as projected top 4 hopefuls. Right? So we get 1-1 draw, and they're clapping their fans. They're in the post-match interviews, and we're walking away feeling a little bit disappointed that we haven't quite knocked them out. Right? So it shows you.
And they're slowing the game down. Their goalkeeper's taking his time to kick the ball. We're rushing.
Exactly.
We know there's something in it for us.
And they're passing backwards. Their crowd's getting edgy because they're passing backwards all the time and getting a critiquing players. And for those people not sure where we are, well, that's where we are. That's how good we can be. And we're nowhere near at full power yet. Nowhere near it. I promise you, nowhere near it. And that's the expectation. And it's not just us. It's everybody around the game in England understands that we're a good side, and you got to work really hard. And we are that team that people want to take out, and that's fine. They want to take out City too. They're working Liverpool out at the moment. Not sure yet. They need to start looking at them a bit more closely. But we are definitely one they want to take out. So Chelsea desperate to take us out. Desperate. Newcastle desperate. Villa last year desperate to take us out. And we have to rise above it and be robust. We have to be robust as a group. I always say the same things. We have to be robust as a fan group as well, and try to block out some of this rubbish. Because we ain't going nowhere this way United. I know that for sure. Nowhere.
Yeah. Paul, the game started slowly. It kind of reminded me of the Inter game in some ways, in that we just didn't look like we really recognized one another on the pitch for the first 15-ish minutes. And then it started to turn around. And I think largely for the rest of the game, we were better. I want to ask you something interesting with Thomas Partey's role in particular, because I thought Partey was really good on the ball again in this game. I find myself struggling to articulate this, so I'm curious how you think about this. Going into this season, I would have thought the evolution was Rice at 6, Marino and Odegaard at the, what we call the 8s, but that would have been the midfield 3. Obviously, we didn't have Odegaard and we didn't have Marino, so there goes that plan out the window. And if that had been the plan, it's certainly gone. And in the interim period, Partey's come in and played very, very well. Down to 10 men, he's played well. At right back, he's played well. In central midfield, he's played well. I can't really say anything negative about his performances, but what I can say is something about the way we dominate games and the way we control territory has been different since he's come back into the team. Is it possible that he can be good, but that the best version of Arsenal demands something different? How do you think about his positive performances versus what looks like a midfield that still, to me, doesn't have the same kind of dynamic that we saw for large stretches of last season?
You can't subtract Martin Odegaard and compare 2 seasons.
Yeah, that's fair.
He is the stability of this team. He's the control. Like, I knew he was good. I knew all the things he did. It wasn't until we ran this experiment. Like, I've heard of unnatural experiments that civil liberties groups and animal welfare should have stopped just at the mere mention of the concept. The idea of playing this Arsenal team without Martin Odegaard, I knew he was good. I knew all the things he did. It's not till you subtract him from the team and you think, holy, and then you see him come back and like what he did in that last 25 minutes, a guy who has not played for 6 weeks, he was like a lunatic fleeing an asylum as he ran across their back line in the 80th, 90th minute. Arteta talked about what we were missing without him. I know this was a Thomas Partey question, but
it wasn't. It's a midfield dynamic question, fundamentally, right?
Yeah, and it's going. We'll have to reevaluate with Odegaard back. I think it's a real. You know where I'm going with the Odegaard thing. He was just absolutely phenomenal. And Arteta talked about, I think, in his the after match interview on the kind of on the sidelines interview. He's like, what we'd been missing apart from players is the jumps on the pressing. And he started getting into some of the specifics, and like, yeah, that's great. Again, abstractly, but then you go back and I'd urge everybody, go back and look at that last 20, 25 minutes. Look at Martin Odegaard. It's insane what he does there. The energy, the pressing, the sharpness. You can see what a jump looks like in terms of pressing. Other people press well. You see the jump. He's the trigger. He's the guy who decides, this is the moment we push them to the sidelines. This is the moment we get the ball back. Then they funnel the ball to Odegaard, and he controls from their side. Maybe we switch it to the other side, but they get the triangles going. You get Ben White up. Unfortunately, we lost a key player in the last 10, 15 minutes, which was Saka. But had we had him there, I actually think we would have got this win, because that was the kind of critical technical quality we were looking for to close out some of those chances.
And I think that what's really hard is any analysis you want to do with this. Declan Rice playing with a broken toe, Odegaard missing for long stretches, Marino hasn't been integrated. Like, we just don't know, Clive. We don't know what the plan in midfield is, but it feels like we got to figure it out sooner or later.
No, we have to stop obsessing about getting to his perfect place. Liverpool have 4 centre mids in Szoboszlai, McAllister, Gravenberch. Who's the other one? Curtis Jones.
Szoboszlai, McAllister, Gravenberch, and Curtis Jones.
And maybe Harvey Elliott into that group, although he's been injured. Right? I think Gravenberch has played most games. I think Szoboszlai plays sometimes, Jones plays sometimes, McAllister plays sometimes. Let's just get to a group. Yeah, let's get to a group of players that we're comfortable with.
Amen.
I didn't see Thomas Partey playing the most outfield minutes of anybody in the season, given last season's injury record.
It's crazy.
And the fact he's played well, people say, well, the best version of Arsenal was when he wasn't playing and when Jorginho was playing. Has anybody looked at his physical drop-off in games? Right? You need to start looking at this properly. I think Jorginho is a better coach, shall we say, on the pitch. I think we miss his leadership capabilities when Odegaard wasn't there. And I've said that before. I think when Odegaard wasn't there last year, Jorginho always was. And I think this team needs that leadership. And that's my critique of a Thomas Partey actually is. I think he just plays. I don't see a leader within him. I think he's a really good player, but I don't think he's a leader per se. And this team maybe missed some leadership capabilities while Jorginho and Odegaard was out. But within this, it's really strange because Reno's been injured and been running around with a rucksack on his back, weighed down till he gets fit. Declan Rice is massively overplayed, played the most minutes in the summer, has got sent off and had some minor injuries that he's obviously dealing with because he's lost all the spring in his running. Right? Odegaard hasn't been there. Right? So, and Thomas Partey's playing centre mid and playing right back, and we're saying the best version of Arsenal is when he's not playing. Well, I'm glad he's playing because we wouldn't have the points that we have already. Do you see what I mean?
He's been fantastic, yeah.
And I think it's something that we have to get used to. Just get used to the group. We will end up in a situation in no time at all where Miles Lewis-Skelly and Ethan Wanier will be in our midfield group. Yeah, and they will be. And Thomas Partey and Jorginho will be moved away, and we'll probably make one more signing. And I guess that may be a ball-playing 6 rather than an 8. And that's
it might need to be, yeah.
And that's what we'll end up doing.
Can I ask you something, though?
It's being comfortable with that. That's what it is.
Yeah, and I agree fundamentally on the idea of a group. I do think that midfield is a little different from, for example, attack. Like, I think in attack, you can put your team out and start Martinelli one day and Trossard another day and Sterling another day and Jesus the other day. And like the playing style and the patterns and things don't change much. I do think midfield is a little different because of the different qualities of players and and the understanding in there has to be so sharp. And I think Mourinho had his best appearance for us so far against Chelsea. I thought he was really good. And like, I think it maybe for that last chance at the end, his willingness, he does some of the things only Partey does for us usually, right? His willingness to keep the ball under pressure without panicking and going straight back. And then he turns and faces and pings it up the pitch. And it's because he draws people to him that there's space up the left-hand side to find a player sprinting away.
And the other thing he does, if I could add quickly, is he plays it up the middle, right? None of that horseshoe. There are times he plays a horseshoe game. Like, that's a good way to progress. But when we needed to be direct, ping up the middle into Odegaard straight ahead. He was actually pushing onto Partey's side, like him, Partey, and Odegaard were all on the same side. And he would turn, spin straight up the middle, central access, get them. That's where those attacks were coming from. That was an interesting change of gear with him.
I'm going to say something stereotypical. Like, he looks like a Spanish midfielder. You know what I mean? He receives the ball in tight spaces. He manipulates the ball well, and he pops it up to the next line. But the reason I'm bringing this up is, like, we are going to hit a point here where, like, Odegaard is going to play every game he's available. He's the captain, and he's the only real primary chance creator we have. And then we got two other spots in the midfield. And so, Clive, while I accept your hypothesis about just being comfortable with the group, if you had to pick sort of, maybe there isn't a 1, 2, and 3. Maybe there's a 1A, 1B, 1C. Is there an evolution here after the international break with everyone fit of what that 1A looks like? Because Declan Rice it isn't some squad player either. You know what I mean? So I'm sort of struggling to think about how this evolution will take place. Will we see that Rice, Odegaard, and Marino midfield? No.
Yeah, we're going to. We're going to. But let's be honest, we've seen 20 minutes of one player, and the other player's got a broken toe.
That's all I need.
And then suddenly we're having this conversation again. And I just think it's incredible. We will get there. It's coming. We've made the investments. The contracts are in the back pockets. It's coming. You haven't got to. Are you forgetting? That people tire? They have bad games. They have to play 3 games a week. Everyone just thinks Declan Rice can just keep going. Well, I don't know if you've noticed, he's not playing that great. You know why? He's absolutely knackered. No one can tell me that the Kai Havertz we're seeing now, despite being our best centre forward, is not the energetic Kai Havertz that was putting people to the ground that we saw Liverpool at home early in this calendar year. He's not. He's fighting for his game. He's gutting exactly that. He's gutting it out. He had 2 weeks off the last break. He's gutting it out. We have to allow for these dips, and this is why we have to stop thinking about things in that way. It will happen. What I said on the IR last night, I stand by today. I thought, I do have a few wines in me. I do think the evolution of the team will involve Declan Rice moving to the right-hand side of that line. You know my thoughts there, Elliot.
Yeah.
And I do think rather than having Rice sort of going up and down in the Xhaka railway line, I want him to go in to out and to almost be the support player for Odegaard and Saka, and basically allow a lot more attacking on that side and a little bit less defending. So Declan Rice is a 2-jobber for me. So make him do 2 jobs on that side defensively, right? But now I can say that today. You know why? Because I saw a bit of playmaking from the guy Marino on the left-hand side. And I'm thinking, oh, this is interesting. Because now we've got somebody who can actually pass the ball, receive it, and turn and pass it. That's exactly.
And box crashing, by the way. Nearly got a goal.
And box crash. Oh, this is interesting. I've seen 25 minutes of it. Didn't see it against Liverpool too much. He wasn't fit then, right? But he's a bit fitter now, And it's like, oh, okay. So we can start to dream. We can start to evolve the team. Imagine we get fullbacks crashing outside of Marino on one side and Timber White on the other side, really connecting on that. So they can sit in and they can control their halves of the pitch in their way with their style. Maybe if we can stop Saka defending in the corner flag, because we've got Declan Rice behind him, nothing gets out of that area. So he can stay high, like Mo Salah stays high. That's the evolution of the team. But you know what? Thomas Partey can do that as well on the right-hand side. And we just got to, if anything, we've got to develop or buy somebody else or develop somebody within the group to be able to do some of the left-hand side stuff. So I think it's so interesting, the evolution. But I do sort of roll my eyes with the haste by which people want to throw somebody away because of a 20-minute performance when the other bloke's got a broken toe. I think we'll get there. We can see it. We will get there. And I'm always, for me, Elliot, you know what I mean? I'm always looking at the group behind the group.
Yeah.
Because that's what does stuff. Look at the Liverpool goalkeeper. The guy behind the guy. He's doing the business. He's doing the business. And no one's even looking at that space anymore. You know, that's really important for you over a season.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And like the irony is we might start to feel in 3-4 weeks time that we have real strength and depth in midfield. Whereas there's another part of the pitch where we don't. The really, really ironic thing is where we really feel like we maybe don't have strength and depth right now is fullback, where we've got like 12 of them. None of them are available.
They'll come back. They'll come back.
Yeah.
We have them in the building,
Paul,
don't we? We have them in the building.
Yeah, they need to be on the pitch though. Paul, you want to add to that?
Yeah, well, look, the original question was the Thomas Partey question. And which Thomas Partey? Because the guy who started the season is a shadow of what this guy is now. His physical levels have come up with each game. He's getting stronger and stronger.
Yep. That's a great point.
I don't think he's going to play for Ghana. He's fallen out with the coach, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got 2 weeks back at Colney or whatever.
I think that's Sobha reality to you.
Maybe, yeah, maybe to you. So he's going to recharge the batteries. He's getting stronger. He's getting fitter. I hear a lot of, they ran past him twice, and that like his backtracking has got way faster, way more aggressive. He's running half a pitch with the striker keeping up. Like he may never be what he was 3-4 years ago. But let's be careful which Thomas Partey we want to throw away, because he's got a lot stronger, a lot better. He's starting to feel it. And it is not obvious to me that the best midfield now involves dropping Thomas Partey and moving Declan Rice in it. Like, that is an assumption we had in the first 2 months of this season. At this point, it's not clear to me that Thomas Partey isn't the best DM we have at this particular juncture in time. Not forever, but at this particular point. And, that's why I like Clive's phrasing. We got to get past there's only 3 guys who can play in our midfield and everybody else is a remote backup. We got different looks, different feels for different games, different opponents, different stages of the game. We took Rice out of this game. Probably he was knackered and shot in we'd stapled his toes together and they were coming loose. But we brought on Marino and it jumped us up levels and suddenly the team sparked. So maybe it was a brilliant tactical move. I don't really care. What we've got is different looks off the bench. You've got, like, if the guy coming off the bench is Marino or Partey or Rice, in any particular game, you're going to get an adrenaline shot to the heart on 70 minutes in each game. And that's what we need. We need that 4th guy coming on. So I like it, Clive.
There was a moment in the game yesterday that I think we got unlucky. There's a couple of moments which I felt were sneaky influential. I think the Malo Gusto heady chance about post when Martinelli couldn't quite get there. But what Martinelli did do was injure his ankle and on the landing. And after that, Gusto stopped being an offensive threat. And that has a byproduct to Cole Palmer, because he had no runners around him. So what did Cole Palmer do? He dropped away to receive the ball in deep areas, and Arsenal said, "Thank you very much. You can receive the ball over there." So Gusto slowing down was a major point. Another major point for those who want to critique our manager not making substitutions soon enough. Well, Marino was warming up aggressively at halftime, according to James Bench tweet that he was obviously there, and he was warming up. And I thought he might come on sooner for Rice, actually, because Rice was obviously on the edge of starting or not and hadn't trained much. And if anything, if Marino had come on 10 minutes sooner when we had just scored, I think we hold that game, because I think we ended up in a situation on the goal where we had an unfit Timber that couldn't quite get out to left back, so Sleeper went and did it. And Rice and Partey both over-covered centrally into the back line. And we didn't have that ability to readjust. If Rice is super fit, that left-hand channel is his all day long. He's not standing in the back line resting. He's out there engaging,
Yeah, I agree.
And that's the
totally
truth.
agree.
And it's just, this is the margins that we're living by. I'm not going to critique anybody for it. It's just where we are. And we're covering for each other, working for each other, trying to hide each other, to get through moments. Ben White's getting through games. He's not running, So yeah, it's just where we are. I just hope we get back to health in the next couple of weeks so we can really judge this team and we can really see this team. Because I feel as though I've not seen them, mate. I'm sorry for repeating myself.
I have to say, I was blown away by Martin Odegaard's performance, though. I mean, having 1.5 training sessions and producing that result. I mean, I thought it was incredible producing that performance. On Martin Odegaard's performance, Mikel Arteta said, I don't know any other player in the league that is capable of doing that after 6 weeks out. He had a day and a half, a training and a half, just physically and mentally to be connected the way he was with the team is unbelievable. He ran and ran and ran the whole game. And what he did is the thing that we need him to do, which is produce the moment that in that final third that leads to a goal. The thing that we really haven't had enough of. I know Paul has to drop, so Paul, just ask you to hit mute and turn off your camera and leave the thing up. Paul's on Twitter. Pause my pants. Thanks. Pause. But Clive, just quickly on Odegaard, like Martinelli does well with his chance, and I'm so glad he did because I think he was having another indifferent performance and one that was probably going to lead to more questions for him. And he gets a goal in a big game, and it's great to see him do that. But it's Odegaard just surrounded by players, picking out a ball that takes the entire Chelsea defense out of the picture. And then he produces the pass that could lead to the goal at the end. So I think what we see in Martin Odegaard is we really, really need someone who makes the last action or the action before the last action, right? Who takes a settled defense and pulls it apart. And the way he did it for the Martinelli goal is just perfect. It's perfection.
Yeah, to be honest with you, football memories are really, really short. I've seen Odegaard play many, many times, but I'd forgotten. Simple as that. I'd forgotten. Yeah. And to watch him play, first 5 minutes to watch him play, I think, oh my God, look at us. Look how we're stepping up. Look how we're stepping forward. We ain't touched the ball yet. Look at us. Look where we're playing. Look at everybody. Look at the engagement in the game. He's not letting anyone get away with anything, mate. No standing still, 15 yards away from the ball. No. Let's get up. Let's stay together. Let's be compact. Let's get after people. It just looks different. He's like the manager, mate. He's like the coach, isn't he? And as for his play, he just understands everything about the game. He just understands to receive the ball, manipulate, hold it, and wait for actions, wait for runs, wait for movements. And while he's doing it, he's keeping it safe side away from the defenders. He's committing people, drawing people. Then he finds a way out of dodge every single time. He like I say, he had a 6, 7 out of 10 game on the ball, but his intention forced our spaces elsewhere. His intention and what he could do. Yeah, a masterclass. It's really interesting. Gary Neville chose Cucurella to be man of the match because that's what he does, because that's the narrative that he chose. But actually, the real narrative was Martin Odegaard's performance after being out for 10 weeks. That was the story for maybe for us with our rose-tinted glasses. That was the story. He was the story. He was, and there was opportunity if you wanted to be positive about Arsenal to talk to him and just talk about what's happened to him on his journey the last few weeks. I just think he's an example in our club, absolute example. And forget what I think. The rest of the team seem to just worship him. Look how they played. Look how they played, and that's the key thing, isn't it?
It's funny, too, because he solves two problems at once, right? He progresses the ball, then he gets into the final third and makes the last action. For progressive passes in this game, Martin Odegaard had 10. Next closest was Thomas Partey with 6, right? Martin Odegaard had 5 shot creating actions. He had 4 key passes. He had 3 final third entries. He had 4 passes into the penalty area. The only other player who had 1 was Ben White with 1, right?
Yeah. He was the man of the match. He was.
Yeah, and he had 2 shots, by the way. He obviously had a couple of tackles. He passed at 90%, which, again, given the areas he's operating in, is incredible. I mean, you think about some of the pass completion percentages from the players that have been in our midfield recently, and it's 72, it's 78, it's 80. He's going into the hard areas and he's making it work. And so he stitches the whole thing together. He helps us go back to front. And then when we're in the front, he helps us go front to goal. And that is just not something you can easily replace. A couple other individuals to call out. The Martinelli goal is good. What do you think? I mean, he's under the microscope for sure, along with this whole project. And I think before he scored, there was some frustration. That's just a lot of body feint, give it back to Timber, who I thought was good, by the way. Do you have a thought on Martinelli, getting a goal in a big situation and hopefully finding a way to be a little more decisive?
Yeah, I'm trying to stay with him. I think the next phase of us will be interesting to see if he can take us there. This is important.
He had that big chance he didn't take, which a lot of people were frustrated with.
They were, it's a strange one, wasn't it? Again, I don't know how many of our, when we watch it earlier, I don't know how many of our big chances were caused by pressing and high turnovers. And I'm sure that was a high turnover. And I think Saka has an unbelievable shot. By the way, if that doesn't get blocked, that's going in, right? And then, and it pings off to Martinelli, doesn't it? And his first touch was an absolute dream. And then he runs onto it in stride, and he decides on a finishing technique where it always looks good if the ball goes in. If it doesn't go in, why do you whack it with your laces? And if you're doing that technique, it's got to come outside the post to in. Or if you're going to take power and aim down, and the keeper will be very lucky to save it. So, hey mate, for someone who's never scored a goal in professional football, I'm full of all the answers, right? So, but that's what I can say afterwards. But the way he controlled that ball, and my feeling with him is, and I tend to be like this with players I know we need, is I want to give him a break because I know we need him. We need 10 goals from him this season, minimum. Right? And at this moment in time, he's on the edge. His confidence is right there, but not quite there. He's right there. But again, he found himself on the back post for the goal. He didn't hide. And he took a really risky shot on that near post. If he goes past the near post here, we've got a special podcast on it. We've got a Martinelli emergency episode. Lose that game 1-0. We have, seriously. Because what we'll say is he missed the first big chance and he's gone past the near post on the second one. I mean, oh my God, how bad is that? I'd have been right there. And he takes that, and he takes that brave shot. But that's why I stay with him. Because the easiest thing to do was just close your eyes and hit it. Do you see what I mean? And he still took it on. I've got a lot of time for him. I want him to get there. Maybe the evolution is we spend in the forward areas and he becomes the fourth guy. But is that where we're heading? Maybe I hope so. If everything works out. If he becomes the fourth guy in our squad, that's not a bad place to be. So we'll just see how this develops going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting too, by the way, that we finished the game the stronger side, given that we had the much harder game in midweek. We went to Inter midweek. They had a fully rotated team take FC Noah apart 8-0, and we finished the game much stronger than they did, despite that. I think that's a good sign, right? That they really struggled to live with us as we pushed on. I actually think you could see the Arsenal coming back as the game wore on. Like, oh yeah, especially, it sounds dumb, but when they pegged us back, maybe we shouldn't have waited for this. We were like, we have to go. We have to go for this. And when we went for it, I think that we looked like the best version of ourselves. The cat and mouse version, where we don't know how hard to push for it, that team doesn't look like it knows itself. The one that was really going to try to win the game, much like we did against Inter when we got behind and we pinned them back, that's when I recognized the Arsenal, actually.
Yeah. It's interesting.
So I wanted to do that. Yeah, go ahead.
We walked away, and I didn't go to the game. I got for the late ticket, and I thought I'd better podcast instead, so I didn't go to the game. And
Thanks, sir.
I wonder how I'd have felt walking out of there, because I would have had those big chances in front of me, and I would have had that last minute miss in front of me, and I would have probably been absolutely devastated if I'd have gone, had a couple of drinks and seen things not go quite right. I'd have been devastated. Sometimes when you have time to look, learn, read, rewatch, and then we talk about it, it's completely different to the guys in the ground. I thought the guys in the ground were absolutely fantastic. The way they sort of embarrassed Michael Oliver, mate, I thought it was brilliant. I thought the way they supported the team, as always in that ground, it's a nice away day, was really, really good. But I wonder where that sensitivity level is regarding the performance. I'll be interested to speak to Tim and catch up, because I know he was there. So, because I find that interesting. I do think there was a live view versus an online view, and I want to know if that gap's big.
Yeah. I have to say, you mentioned Michael Oliver. Not a lot of big calls to make in this game, but towards the end, I mean, Caicedo was playing totally out of control in this game. I don't know what was going on with him. It reminded me of Guimaraes a couple of times ago against Newcastle, where he was barging into people, pushing people over, kicking at people, and like, I don't know how he got away with it. Overall, like, I don't really have an issue with the refereeing performance, but I thought that was poor.
It was okay. I thought the one I thought was a bit naughty that you have to recognise this is the game was the collision with Caicedo and Odegaard earlier on. Because although it's 50-50, Caicedo thought the ball's there, I can go through him. I'm heavier than him. I'm a bit stronger than him in these physical contact situations. I'm going to leave one on him. And I felt that was a bit naughty. I really did. I thought he went to take him out, knowing he's important. And he's done that. We see him do it to Martinelli at the Emirates. He took him out on a tackle, a long-legged tackle on the right-hand side, twisted his ankle. He had to come out. We lost him for weeks after that. He is prone to doing that, but he hasn't got that reputation for some reason. So he can just rush around the pitch doing what he likes, right? So, one to watch with him. I do think he's improved a lot. I think he's a fine player. That club probably suits him, I'm afraid. And we go from there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in general, like, when I look at the Chelsea side of this, I don't think they were bad. I think that would be overstating it. I think we outplayed them after the first 15 minutes. I do think we did a great job of nullifying Cole Palmer, who just does not seem to make himself a part of these big games. He really struggles. And, maybe this is the thing we're missing, ironically, is a flat track bully. Because you look at Erling Haaland, who kills the small teams, and you look at Cole Palmer, who kills the small teams. You look at Phil Foden, kills the small teams. And like, we have players that I think show up in big games. We've been one of the best big game teams in the Premier League for a couple of seasons now against the big 6 and 7 and 8. But maybe we do need someone who goes and scores hat tricks against Ipswich or whatever the case may be. That may be something that we are missing, is someone who's a sunny day player, but not necessarily the player that we rely on when the going gets tough, because Palmer was not there to influence the game. Well, a couple of last little points here, and we've saved the worst for last, so to speak. I think let's do this part first. Gabriel Jesus. I said this earlier in the pod, Clive, but I still trust Martinelli, even if I think maybe my ceiling outcome for him is no longer there. I think he's a very good player who can be an important part of a title winner, but maybe there needs to be a player ahead of him who's even better. That's a question. We'll see. Saka's obviously a worldie. I still have all the faith in the world in Kai. It's the group behind the group. And a big one of those guys is Jesus. He's on a big wage. He's part of the leadership group. He's only 27. And when you said that on the instant reaction yesterday, I almost lost it. He just doesn't strike me as a guy in the heart of his prime. He strikes me as a guy who's fallen out of love with his football. And this was a cameo of a guy who, I'm not going to go into the pop psychology. I'll just say the football part of it. He is not in form. His game is not there for him at the moment.
Yeah, I always hey, look, I have given a little bit of stick, really, because I do tend to give the senior pros a bit less. I'm less patient with the senior pros, shall we say, because I need them. I need them to be senior pros, particularly at these critical moments. We don't know what goes on in football players' lives. I'm always conscious when I see such a drop-off like this. I always worry because of maybe something what you don't know. And we don't know everything. But we can judge the football. And I'm struggling to judge him at the moment. I'm struggling. I want him to, for me, he was nearly my pick. I may have said it. I want him to start the game. When the game was going on, I'm thinking, I couldn't trust him to play left today. I couldn't trust him on that side. With Madueke and people like that, they tend to be right-sided heavy. I couldn't trust him to defend that side. Now that is not something I would have said 5 months ago. You could trust him anywhere defensively, to be that guy, the best defensive attacker in the world, Pep called him, and his pressing stuff was off the charts. He was so defensive. In fact, can he get in the box and score a few goals was the critique, wasn't it? Now he's not really getting to the pitch of the ball defensively. I think he lost a little bit of condition, and I think he lost a little bit of heart. I don't think he's accepting the fact that he can't be a prominent role at Arsenal, and I think he's struggling with it. And sometimes that happens. Football's a ruthless game, right? It's all about selection. And He's not being selected, and when he is selected, he's been not in the roles that he sees himself being in. And that's down to him, I'm afraid. You've got to start producing, and he's not, and it's a real shame because we really need him. Man City haven't got a Jesus. They got nothing behind Haaland. Phil Foden will be their false nine. That's all they have. We have the group behind the group. And there are issues with all of them at the moment at varying levels. Trossard's gone 7 games without a goal at just the wrong time. Sterling couldn't be in this game because there's his loan club. But I think it's been underused recently, But let's see what happens after the break. And Jesus, the one of all who's in our leadership group, with the contract, with the squad number, with the medals, with the international caps, got everything that makes us better than some of our competitors. And Aston Villa shot up the charts this season. Why? The guy come off the bench, John Duran, has just smashed the ball in the net a few times and given them those margin games. We're not getting enough, I'm afraid, and it's a real shame.
Yeah.
But let's see what happens going forward. Hopefully he can return. I really hope so.
Yeah, JB, Gunner Punter on Twitter. I think this is very, very harsh. But when you lay it out this way, again, it's very harsh. But when you lay it out this way, you almost have to laugh. He was sort of listing Trossard's season so far this season, Leo's season.
Yeah.
And he put these bullet points. Sulked after scoring against Villa. Red card at City. The back pass that got Saliba sent off against Bournemouth. The penalty he decides to take instead of Havertz for Shakhtar that he misses. And then the chance at the end of the Chelsea game. Like, other than the sulking against Villa, a lot of that is harsh and unfair, but it just feels like it's not gone for him.
Well, he's noticed something. He's not the only one who's noticed these moments. Put it that way. And he's, like we said, Trossard is one I struggle to hit too hard. When he has dark moments, mate, they're bad. They're not great, are they? But actually, when he came on yesterday, some of his passing was really, really good.
I thought he added something for us. It's unfortunate for him, right? Because he has that chance at the end that's going to color things. But like, I do want to get to that chance at the end. I think it's onside. Odegaard does brilliantly. He plays it to Saliba of all people. Saliba's cross is perfect. And Kai is absolutely going to tap that in. Here's the thing. I don't know how Leo's supposed to know that. And I don't know how you can ask him. If he doesn't kick that, if he leaves that and the keeper just collects it or something, he's not making it back on the team bus. I don't know how you ask someone. I think he just has to hit it better or get unlucky and miss it completely and have it go to Kai, because otherwise it's a goal. It's a tap-in.
Yeah, it's interesting. He missed a chance of it last year when he didn't quite open his foot out enough and started past Martinez. He went straight at him. This time he opened out his foot too much and gone past the far post, right? So it was a lovely pass from Trossard into Odegaard in the first place, and he's followed his pass and he's got into the box and he's got momentum. There is no way he's letting that ball come across him. He's all he's got to do is fix his stride pattern and use the pace of the ball to punch in the bottom corner. He has to take it on. He just didn't do it right. He didn't execute it right, and it's and we have these damn wide lens cameras that can make us see every. We literally got 3 people ahead of their back line because they've gone cowardly and tried to hold the line for the offside and stop defending. So we've now crossing into 3 men. We managed to push past all of them. I mean, mate, I'm hoping that's offside. Do not tell me anything else. I'm hoping that's offside. I can live.
It's not offside.
I can live my life thinking that was offside. I can live my life. So whatever you say, I'm just ignoring you right now. That was offside, and we are just unlucky, and we move on. All right, that's where I am.
Yeah, well, I think it says something that we went to Stamford Bridge against an informed Chelsea team that has a lot of good talent that's been very good this season and looks on the up, and we come away feeling disappointed with a point. I think the defending for their goal, certainly, as we've discussed, could have been better. I think we created the chances we needed to win the game. And for a team that needed some signs, I'm willing to take the signs that were coming around from this game. And I get it if people just are in the dumps because of the 9-point gap, but I think it's incumbent upon Liverpool to show that they have the staying power now that they get into a tough part of their season. And to Clive's point, we are now in points accumulation mode. I don't need to list off for you the next 9 games. Everybody probably knows them by now, but they're the ones where we need to be accumulating points. We don't know how hurt Saka is. We'll have to find out. Maybe not one to worry about today. We're going to rewatch the Chelsea game tomorrow for patrons. We got some other stuff coming for you on the data side too. We're going to do a data review of the season to date so far, which is a little difficult to do given the 10v11 situations, but we're going to try to do that. So a lot of stuff to keep you busy. Maybe we'll talk more about the David Coote stuff as it develops, although I'm inclined to think that's not worthy of like as much breathless outrage as necessary. Yeah, let's put it this way. If you didn't think there was an issue at the PGMOL before this, you've been asleep. So I can't help you.
They're human beings,
the funny thing is he's
and
gone with the Shaggy defense. It wasn't me. He says it's not an authentic video, which if this is a deep fake, well, that would be an interesting development.
I think there's a referee podcast to have, an honest one. And it's not just about slagging someone because you didn't get a decision. It's an honest one about where we're going with refereeing, full stop. So I look forward to that podcast, mate.
All right. Well, I think we can leave it there for this one. We've kind of gone around the bend and back again, less on the game and more on the big picture, but I think that's where people's heads are at the moment. And we'll have more chance to analyze the game more closely when we do the rewatch tomorrow. So join us for that. Clive's on Twitter, ClivePFC. Thanks, Clive.
Thank you very much.
Paul got bored and left ages ago. My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. We love you. And I can't wait to see so many of you in person when we talk to you after Arsenal 10, Forest 0.